Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we really get into the details, pulling out the key insights from interesting sources. You probably experience a bit of Apple's magic, right? That feeling you get where things just understand you, the design, the products, they just work. It's this remarkable consistency they have. But have you ever really start to wonder how they pull that off? It feels so simple, but it's definitely not just luck.
No, not luck at all. It's actually, well, it's a relentless, almost you could say maniacal obsession with
Yeah.
one core principle.
And that magic, like you said, it's not some secret ingredient they sprinkle on. It's really baked in, isn't it? A philosophy.
Exactly. A guiding light that shaped pretty much everything they've done. So today we're taking a deep dive into that philosophy behind Apple's, well, constant reinvention. We're drawing a lot from Ken Segall's fantastic book, Insanely Simple, The Obsession That Drives Apple's Success. Segall, he was an ad creative director, worked right alongside Steve Jobs at NXT and Apple for something like 17 years. So he had this unique insider view.
Wow, 17 years. He must have seen a lot.
Oh, absolutely. His book is just packed with these incredible stories, anecdotes, and he really contrasts Apple's way with the big tech giants, Intel, Dell, Microsoft. It shows just how different Apple really operated.
Okay, so our mission today then is to kind of unpack this whole religion of simplicity that Segall talks about. We'll look at how it's not just about the shiny products, but like everything, how they talk internally, their marketing, even how they handle legal stuff. And importantly, we want to pull out principles that you listening can maybe apply in your own work, whatever industry you're in, ways to cut through complexity and get those insanely great results Apple talks about.
Exactly. Practical takeaways from this, well, obsession. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with the philosophy itself. Section 1, the philosophy of brutal simplicity. Segall kicks things off with this idea he calls the simple stick. Sounds a bit harsh.
Tuckles, it does. But it was fundamental for Steve Jobs. It's this core idea. Reject anything that doesn't boil an idea down to its absolute essence. Segall uses this great metaphor. He said Jobs would nix work, not because it was bad per se, but because it took a turn when it should have traveled a straight line.
Ah, so it wasn't about like sloppy work, but about complexity that shouldn't have been there in the first place, like built into the project's DNA.
Precisely. It demanded this initial clarity. It forced a kind of strategic purity that, frankly, most places just avoid. Take the story about product packaging. Jobs gets shown packaging for two versions of the same product. His reaction, instant, calls it brain dead.
Ouch!
Yeah, and his instruction was simple. Just combine them, one product, one box. See, that's not a design tweak. That's eliminating unnecessary choices before the creative stuff even starts, challenging the whole premise.
So the simplicity wasn't about making things easy, but making them, what, essential,
Sure.
singular.
Essential, exactly. And that distinction is key,
Yeah.
because getting to that kind of simplicity, well, it often takes more work up front. Right.
It sounds counterintuitive.
It is.
Mm.
Segall says it can take more time, more money, and more energy to make something truly simple. And yeah, it might step on a few toes inside the company, but the payoff, he argues, consistently leads to measurably better results. Real elegance comes from that relentless distillation.
So it's always asking yourself, is there a simpler path here, even if it's harder to find initially?
Absolutely. And that pursuit, that relentless drive for the essential, it leads right into how Apple communicated, especially under Jobs, the power of, well, directness, unvarnished truth.
Ah, yes, the famous Ken Segall first meeting story at NXT.
Legendary, isn't it? Jobs, big warm smile, praises Segall's TV ads. Then bam, the print is really shit.
I mean, how do you even respond to that?
Segall says he was shocked, obviously, but later he realized, there wasn't any malice in Steve's words. He was just being himself.
For Jobs, blunt was simple, right? Blunt is simplicity, meandering is complexity. That's what Segall writes.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to be mean. He was just being straight, cutting through the awkwardness, the varnished truth, as he called it.
And how different is that from, the usual corporate feedback loop where everything's softened and filtered?
Oh, night and day. In most companies, feedback gets watered down by politeness, or it goes through layers of managers, or people have their own agendas, right? Segall calls that varnished truth, or sometimes sporadic truth, and it just adds complexity. It can actually hurt projects and relationships because nobody knows what the real issue is.
Whereas Jobs' way however uncomfortable.
It just cleared the decks, this pervasive 24-hour, in-your-face, take-no-prisoners clarity, as Segall puts it. Everyone knew exactly where they stood, the goals, the consequences. Think about how much time it saved, not having to spend energy decoding what people are really saying. It was radically efficient, even if it felt brutal sometimes.
It definitely sounds like you needed a thick skin to work there. But it makes you think, right? How much energy do you spend decoding vague feedback? For leaders who don't have jobs as, let's say, authority, how do you build that culture of honesty without totally alienating people? It's a tough balance.
A very tough balance.
Yeah.
But the potential for speeding things up is huge. And this clarity, it wasn't just about feedback. It extended to Apple's standards, unwavering standards. Segall calls this the merciless side of simplicity. There was no almost, no good enough.
The Cheat Day t-shirt motto, good enough is not enough.
Perfect encapsulation. And yeah, this definitely demanded resilience. A thick skin was practically required. Segall says Jobs' outbursts could be scary, no doubt. But the senior people, they mostly got that they were being pushed for a reason. They developed a kind of growing immunity.
Immunity, huh? Like battle scars. Segall even called his own pummelings a badge of courage.
Right. Almost a rite of passage. But what's fascinating is how Jobs could also just move on. Segall mentions his ability to do a hard reset between meetings. You could have a massive fight one day, but it didn't mean you were toast the next. Performance was judged on its merits. People could always demonstrate your worth and get back in his good books.
That's interesting. Brutal, but also maybe fair. In a weird way, it prioritizes the work over grudges, which is efficient, I guess.
Extremely efficient.
Right.
Think about the Nike interview story.
Okay.
Jobs is interviewing this top exec global account director for Nike, a brand everyone saw as untouchable.
All right, the pinnacle.
And Jobs just cuts through it. Nike has been great for a long time, so your job is to not fuck anything up.
The laughs. Okay.
But see, he wasn't just being provocative. He was demanding that the guy understand the real challenge, especially for Apple, which was struggling then. What did great work actually mean in that context, not just coasting on past success?
And Jobs applied this to himself too, right? Developed his own thick skin.
Absolutely. Segall points to how Jobs handled the backlash when he killed the Mac clones in '97. A hugely controversial move. People were furious. But Jobs could just compartmentalize the incoming news, absorb what he wished, and blocked out the rest. He knew criticism came with the territory.
And the Pirates of Silicon Valley reaction is amazing.
Isn't it? The movie portrays him with serious flaws, like the paternity issue. But Jobs was apparently tickled by it, loved that Noah Wild played him, even through a viewing party.
He was just unfazed, bought into any publicity is good publicity.
Pretty much. The negatives just didn't stick. He was focused on the bigger picture.
It's an incredible level of detachment. So for you listening, where do you settle for good enough? How do you handle criticism? Can you separate the useful bits from the noise without letting it wreck your focus? It's about that constant drive for real excellence.
And that drive often meant thinking small to achieve big things.
Okay, section 2. The art of thinking small and acting decisively. This seems core to Apple's process.
Absolutely. It starts with this intense focus on small groups of smart people. Segall paints the picture of Apple's meeting culture under Jobs. Meetings were usually small, informal, often no strict agenda. Just the key players. Creative lead, account lead, media lead, Jobs, maybe Phil Schiller, Joni Ive.
And special guest stars were invited as required. Love that phrase.
It says it all, doesn't it? That as required part is crucial, deliberate, almost surgical about keeping groups lean. Ken tells this story about a woman, Lorrie, someone unfamiliar who showed up at a meeting. Jobs just asked her point blank, "Who are you?"
No messing around.
None. Learns she's not really needed for that discussion and politely but firmly says, "We don't need you in this meeting. Thanks." And she never came back to that specific meeting group.
Wow. It sounds harsh out of context, but the logic is clear, isn't it? Smaller group, more focus, more motivation, smarter people, higher quality work.
It seems like pure common sense. Yet think about how often it's ignored in big companies. You get these overpopulated meetings, as Segall calls them. They wander off track, lose focus, great ideas get diluted by committee.
The fastest way to lose focus, squander valuable time, and water down great ideas, it rings true. Segall even made laws of small out of it.
He did. Kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also serious. Law 1. The quality of work resulting from a project is inversely proportional to the number of people involved. More people, lower odds of great work.
Okay. And law 2.
The quality of work, increases in direct proportion to the degree of involvement by the ultimate decision maker. So it's not just about who's in the room, but who's actively engaged in making calls.
Right, just having the boss present isn't enough if they're checked out.
Exactly. So think about your own schedule. How many meetings feel bloated? Could you play a role in making them smaller, more focused, maybe even politely suggest someone isn't needed? It takes courage, like Jobs showed.
And that links to the next point. The decision maker's unfiltered involvement. Jobs didn't delegate big marketing decisions, did he?
Not really. He was there for every presentation, kept tabs on every project's progress. Segall mentions Jobs being involved with every image and every word, even those infamous midnight phone calls about ad copy.
That's intense. But the key was the unfiltered part, right? He wouldn't let anyone see the agency's ideas before him, not even his marketing VP.
Correct. His reasoning was fascinating. I don't want someone guessing what I'm going to like or not like. Maybe I'll see a spark in there that nobody else sees. He wanted the raw concepts, straight from the source.
That's so rare. Compare that to Intel, which Segall describes as a difficult client.
Oh, a completely different world. Intel had friction and formality, quarterly report cards for the agency. Meetings were staged and choreographed, lots of layers. Ken tells this shocking story from his time at Intel's agency. A legal issue comes up. The internal team agrees on what to do, but the account director says, get this, we can't have an opinion until we know what Intel's opinion is.
Wow, that just sums up the paralysis, doesn't it? Calculation over honesty. Managing the relationship instead of actually collaborating.
Exactly. And it had consequences. Intel ended up moving their business. It shows the damage that happens when you lose that direct, honest connection with the decision maker.
So for you listening, are you getting feedback straight or is it filtered? Are you being asked to guess what the boss wants? What could change if you push for that direct engagement?
Which leads naturally into the balance between process and creativity. Apple had what Segall calls the smart timeline.
Right. At Apple, a better idea is a better idea. Process couldn't trump creativity.
Segall says putting process before creativity would put one at risk of excommunication from the Church of Simplicity. Jobs knew from Pixar and Disney that ideas need nurturing, protection. You can't just analyze your way to brilliance with a spreadsheet.
Compare that to Intel again with their CEO demanding zero defect advertising.
Yeah, that came straight from their engineering culture. But it caused great pain among the creative thinkers, Segall writes. Because great ideas inherently involve some risk, don't they?
Of course. If you eliminate all risk, you probably eliminate the possibility of anything truly groundbreaking.
Precisely. Intel's mindset led to endless meetings and multiple approvals. It just choked the creativity out. For them, risk is a defect.
So the smart timeline is about finding the sweet spot.
Exactly. Segall quotes Leonard Bernstein. To achieve great things, two things are needed: a plan and not quite enough time. That little bit of pressure.
Not quite enough time. I like that.
Apple's perfect project time was often around 3 months. Enough time for quality, but not so much that it invites overthinking. And the intensity mattered too. Never stop moving. The project starts day one, consumes people. No timeouts allowed. Keep the momentum.
And they had that pragmatic 1.0 product strategy. Aim high, but realistically, get the best first version out.
Right. First iPod, just music. First iPhone, no third-party apps. This let them lead, let competitors play catch-up, and then they'd add features later, often things they'd already considered, but cut from version 1.0. Very smart.
Segall contrasts this with Dell's attempt at a brand campaign in 2008. Apple in '97. Started immediately, knew their essence, boom, think different.
Dell. Months of planning, weeks figuring out who they wanted to be, fighting between their consumer and commercial divisions.
Result: a stack of presentation boards stored neatly in a dark closet. Ouch. Complexity killed it.
And the Microsoft story after the DOJ investigation is also telling. They lost confidence, brought in an outsider pollster, Mark Penn.
Who imposed this generic kids, puppies, and small businesses image that had nothing to do with Microsoft's actual strengths or stories.
Right. Segall says the internal marketing teams felt totally lost, like working for a tobacco company. It was completely inauthentic and demoralizing.
So the takeaway here feels like, are you letting comfortable timelines lead to overthinking? Can you adopt that never stop moving vibe and focus on getting a strong 1.0 out the door? And crucially, are you protecting your core identity from strategies that just don't fit?
That's it, exactly. Protect the essence, which brings us to minimizing in other areas.
Okay, section 3. Minimizing for maximum impact. This feels very Apple, starting with the product line itself.
Oh, yeah. When Jobs came back, the product line was a mess, right?
Yeah.
Quadra, Performa, LC, PowerBook, Power Macintosh. who could even keep track.
Total confusion.
His fix was radical. The 4-quadrant product strategy: consumer desktop, pro desktop, consumer portable, pro portable. 4 boxes. Fewer, higher profile premium products meant better efficiency, justified premium pricing. Segall's line is perfect.
Yeah.
Apple is very good at saying no.
Saying no seems incredibly hard for most companies. They want to chase every possible customer segment.
Exactly. And look at the contrast Segall draws with HP and Dell around 2011. HP had over 23 different laptop models. Dell had 18.
23. How could anyone choose?
Right. Overlapping features. A total sea of choices. It creates confusion for customers, even for their own salespeople. Decision time goes from a few minutes to a few hours.
Whereas Apple offered distinct models, thin and light versus full-featured, maybe with obvious differences. Then you customize.
Much less confusion. Customers feel more connected to a company that gives them a simple buying experience. And Apple consistently topped customer satisfaction surveys. It proves that it's not a lack of choice that's bad, it's the overdose that becomes damaging.
And especially online, speed and simplicity rule. Minimize the clicks to buy.
Absolutely. So, for you listening,
Yeah.
take a hard look at what you offer. Are you creating choice overload? Where can you minimize to make things clearer, easier to navigate, even if it means saying no to some things?
And this minimalism extended to defining their audience too, right?
Definitely. Apple didn't really splinter its marketing like the PC guys did: small business, big business, education, government. Apple mostly focused on one target. It simply sees its customers as people. They marketed a great computer, period.
That's a huge simplification compared to the typical segmented approach. How did Dell handle it?
Dell was split. Commercial, focused on IT managers, made most of the money. Consumers more about style, kind of whimsical. But this created internal competition, inefficiency. They even had similar laptops coming from both divisions, competing with themselves.
And the RIM Playbook launch, a disaster class in confused targeting.
Oh, textbook. Positioned as the tablet for the business crowd. Headline: amateur hour is over. Super aggressive.
But then their ads showed people playing games and watching movies.
Exactly. Totally inconsistent messaging. And the killer: the first model didn't even have a native email client for a business tablet.
Unbelievable. Sales were terrible compared to the iPad.
Because Apple, with the iPad, just went for humankind. They showed the possibilities, let people figure out how they wanted to use it. Segall says it adds to the wonder of iPad that it can so beautifully adapt to the life of its owner. Much more inviting.
So, are your marketing efforts too fragmented? Could you connect more powerfully by focusing on the core human needs and possibilities rather than slicing your audience too thin?
It's a powerful question. And this minimizing applies to process and information flow, too, avoiding that death by 1,000 cuts.
Segall talks about his shock moving from Apple to Intel's world, the focus groups.
Oh, the focus groups. Intel had this elaborate global system, tons of microanalysis. They wanted to be doubly, triply sure they had the perfect ad. But the result: often mediocrity, trying to please everyone, offend no one. It just drains the creativity, pushes everything to the safe middle ground. It failed to connect emotionally.
It's the paradox. Their quest for efficiency through process actually made their marketing inefficient and forgettable.
Exactly. And remember the Saturn sheet metal ad story. It bombed in focus groups. Bombed.
But the client saved it.
Yeah. A brave client overruled the research. And the ad went on to be hugely successful. It proves good ideas need to be protected from those who would do them damage. Sometimes even damage from well-meaning processes.
That's a great point. And the Lee Clow paperball demo for Jobs is classic.
So simple, so brilliant. Jobs wanted to cram 4 or 5 key messages into an iMac ad. Clow crumples 5 pieces of paper, throws them, Jobs misses. Clow throws 1 piece, Jobs catches it.
Message received. The more things you ask people to focus on, the fewer they'll remember.
It's the essence of simple communication. Contrast that with Intel ads Segall saw later, with like 4 different headlines, multiple graphic screens at the end. Just information overload driven by that microanalysis.
And Jobs hated overly slick internal presentations too, didn't he? The story about Hank the planner.
Oh yeah, Hank comes in with his Apple brand audit, big foam core boards, graphs, charts, numbers. Jobs just sinks lower in his chair, board stiff, finally cuts him off. Okay, whatever, let's look at some ads.
He saw it as big company stuff, fluff over substance, wanted straight talk and raw content.
Segall learned that lesson directly with NXT ads. He started a long preamble. Jobs cuts him off. Just show me the ads.
Then asks him, are you going to be sitting next to me to explain things when I read the Wall Street Journal? Brutal, but clear. Cut to the chase.
Exactly. Concentrate on what matters. So, for you listening, How much fluff is in your communications? Are you trying to make people absorb too much at once? What processes, maybe even those sacred cows like endless focus groups, are actually hindering your best ideas? Could you benefit from just cutting to the chase?
This focus on clarity extends right down to the words themselves. Phrasal simplicity. Naming things.
Yes, the iMac naming story is fantastic. The internal code name was C1. Jobs initially fell in love with MacMan.
Pac-Man. Really? Sounds a bit 80s video game.
Yeah, Segall says Jobs liked the Sony Walkman connection, but also the Pac-Man vibe. Yet Jobs himself warned against names sounding frivolous or portable, which McMahon kind of did. Bit of a contradiction.
Shows his strong opinions, though. So how did iMac win?
Ken Segall's team pushed for it. They felt the I was perfect. Internet, individual, imagination, concise, memorable. Jobs hated them all at first, insisted on McMahon, gave them deadlines.
Sounds stressful.
Totally. But eventually, Jobs saw the merit in iMac, liked it enough to get it mocked up on a prototype, and then, boom,
Yeah.
he took it and ran.
So it shows he had strong opinions, but wasn't totally immovable if the argument was passionate and made sense.
Exactly. Not weakness, but reasonableness. His love of simplicity won the day, as Segall puts it. And Apple's naming process generally stayed close to home, internal or Chiat-day, people who knew the company, resulting in names that were concise, easy to remember, and built a foundation, like a family of names.
Unlike Dell's approach, Inspiron, Vostro, XPS, Optiplex.
Random. Segall calls them names from completely unrelated worlds, no connection to each other or the Dell brand. Each name has to fight for recognition on its own. Huge marketing challenge.
And the phone makers with names like Enlighten, Breakout, Astound.
Often driven by carriers wanting unique names for their version. Just adds to the perpetual case of product proliferation. Total confusion.
Whereas Apple achieved simplicity is singularity. iPhone is just iPhone, even with model numbers. Macs are always Macs. iPod models describe their function or size.
It creates clarity. Even the name Droid, which Segall admits is an excellent name, short, memorable, futuristic, failed the singularity test because it was licensed out to multiple companies. No single maker owned it.
And the joy of obvious with naming iPhone, it was more than just a phone.
Right. It was phone, internet, iPod, 3 devices. But iPhone was obvious. It instantly told the world what industry Apple was disrupting. It drove buzz, even if the name seems limiting at first.
But they had to fight for that name, didn't they? Cisco owned it.
They did. Big legal battle. Jobs announced the phone without securing the rights first. He was undeterred, knew the name's value was immense, worth paying for, worth fighting for. Cisco sued. They settled.
Shows that extreme commitment again, pushing right to the edge for simplicity.
So, for you, how simple and consistent are your names? Are you creating confusion with complex schemes? Are you overlooking an obvious name because it feels too simple? And are you willing to fight for a name that truly works?
Okay, let's shift to how Apple used simplicity to create iconic images and connect emotionally. Section 4. Embracing the iconic and human touch.
This really starts with the Think Different campaign. You have to remember the context. 1997, Apple is dying. Languishing in mediocrity, dying of neglect. Products were boring.
Jobs wasn't just trying to save the company. He wanted to reignite its soul, right?
Exactly. Reintroduce the spirit of Apple. Position Apple as the champion for creativity against the beige boxes of the world, the IBMs and HPs.
And they had no new products ready for months.
Right. 6 months. So they needed a brand campaign first to reconnect with old fans who remember the glory days and introduce the real Apple to a new generation who only knew the weak one.
Enter Think Different. The phrase itself, from art director Craig Tanimoto, just nailed it.
Perfectly. And the visuals, those iconic black and white portraits, Einstein, Henson, Dalai Lama, MLK Jr., people who truly stepped outside the bounds. Just the portrait, the Apple logo, Think Different, so clean, so powerful.
And Jobs' involvement was total, reviewing edits at 3 a.m., recording the voiceover himself initially.
He raised the bar for CEO involvement, says Segall. He was passionate about that Crazy One script, felt it captured the company's spirit perfectly, even though they used Richard Dreyfuss for broadcast eventually.
And the media placement was just as strategic, no random spots.
No, media chief Monica Caro was surgical. Only in those places where it would achieve maximum notice. Back covers, prime billboards near airports, backlit bus shelters, even painted on buildings like the John and Yoko one in NYC.
And Jobs approved it all without testing, just trusted his gut.
Knew in his heart this work would resonate. Incredible confidence. And the timing was perfect. It was the ideal branding buildup for the iMac.
Ah, the Bondi blue iMac. Talk about thinking differently.
It couldn't have paid off that theme line any better. The product itself was think different, translucent, colorful, showing the inside. It became an icon. And this continued. iBook, Mac Pro, each product embodied the philosophy. Think different, morphed from a slogan into a product descriptor. They eventually stopped the hero ads because the products were the campaign.
Then came the iPod silhouettes. Another stroke of genius. Not even showing the product clearly.
Radical, wasn't it? Just
Yeah.
black silhouettes dancing against bright colors with that iconic white iPod and white earbuds. It created an instant visual signature for Apple and iPod. They were selling the emotion, the joy of music, not just the tech specs.
So it makes you think, how are you using visuals and emotion? Are your products or services a physical manifestation of your brand's core idea? Could you break the rules sometimes, like not showing the product to make a stronger connection?
In that connection, that human touch was deeply important to Jobs personally. The iMovie story.
Oh, right. Segall tells how Jobs was using an early iMovie prototype back in '99, made a movie of his kids, and actually started crying.
Yeah. He told Segall, "This is the first time a computer made me cry." He was genuinely amazed that technology could have this kind of emotional effect.
It shows the goal wasn't just cool tech, it was about enabling human connection and expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The agency tried an ad based on it. The Crying Man, which kind of missed the mark, looked like grief without context.
So then they course-corrected, used that fun home movie of an Apple VP's kids jumping on the bed to Bob Dylan. That worked.
It captured the joy. And that's key. Apple sees human potential where other companies do not. They removed the barrier of technology. iPod simplified music access. iPhone's touchscreen treated users like people instead of fellow machines. iPad made tech feel like a natural extension of our humanity. Simple touch.
It goes way back, doesn't it? That 1977 Apple II brochure. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Asking basic questions like, what can a personal computer do? And listing human uses.
Yes, engaging people who were scared or confused by computers. That human articulation of a technological breakthrough became their signature.
And speaking in plain English, not tech jargon.
Consistently. Speak his customer's language. It makes Apple feel authentic at every point of customer contact. It builds this whole ecosystem of simplicity.
And the Apple stores are maybe the ultimate expression of that ecosystem, a huge risk at the time.
Massive risk. Gateway stores were failing, looking like, well, Sears. Apple went completely opposite. First class. Building shrines to simplicity. Italian floor tiles, Japanese steel, German glass, uncluttered, inviting, focused on relationships, not just transactions. They became Apple's most potent weapon for regaining share.
It really was about the whole experience. So, for you listening, how can your work evoke real emotion? Can you make complexity feel natural, human? Are you speaking your audience's language? And where can you invest in the experience around your product or service, creating your own shrines to simplicity?
It's vital to remember, though, the man driving this wasn't simple himself. Segall talks about the two Steves.
Right. The merciless, controlling, unrelenting one, and the inspiring, charming, and deeply human one.
That contradiction made him fascinating, inspired incredible loyalty. And despite the intensity, he valued those happy accidents, didn't he? Impromptu chats in the hallway.
Yeah, creating space for unexpected connections. But his intensity was shaped by tough times, getting pushed out of Apple in '85.
That was the first humbling. Realizing he wasn't invulnerable, then next T struggling, having to pivot from hardware to software, another humbling.
And then the cancer diagnosis in 2004, confronting mortality.
Segall says that was the most profound humbling, and it just reinvigorated his desire to put a dent in the universe. These hard experiences fueled his drive.
It's a reminder for all of us, right? How do our own challenges shape our vision? And are we creating environments where those happy accidents can happen?
But even for Jobs, simplicity sometimes hit a wall. The Willy Wonka story is hilarious.
Meeting the millionth iMac buyer in full Willy Wonka gear. I wish that had happened.
Laughs. Me too. But the lawyer stepped in. California sweepstakes laws meant no purchase required. Couldn't do the golden certificate in the box. Faced with those legal complexities, Jobs just said it wasn't worth it. Sometimes simplicity means killing a fun but complicated idea.
And sometimes abandoning simplicity leads to disaster, like Dell's Adamo laptop.
Oh, the Adamo. Dell tried to make a MacBook Air killer, rushed it, pulled in outside engineers, but then it just drowned in a sea of complexity. Pricing, marketing, reliability, it was a mess. A $2,500 laptop from a company known for $600 ones? Ordered online, but needed to be held. Advertised in Vogue, ran in the business press. Just totally confused. Failed spectacularly.
It shows you can't just pick simplicity a la carte, right? Simplicity is an all-or-none proposition.
Exactly. But when Apple was committed, they were really committed. Like the packaging story where they made a vendor completely redesign their machines.
Just to avoid compromising on a tiny piece of styrofoam packaging that no one would likely notice.
Yes. Because Apple had a vision for the unboxing experience, Jobs had approved every detail, and they refused to take no for an answer, even if it required extraordinary effort from the vendor. That's commitment.
So, are you willing to kill an idea when complexity takes over? Or, conversely, are you willing to push really hard, demand extraordinary effort when something is critical to your simple vision? It's a constant balancing act.
A demanding one. Which leads us to how Apple used simplicity almost like a weapon.
Section 5. Simplicity as a weapon of war, starting with strategically choosing enemies.
Right after Jobs' return, 1997, Apple went straight after Intel. Those ads snail. Burning Bunny claiming Macs were twice as fast, super aggressive, belligerent even.
But it was deliberate, a proxy war against the whole PC industry.
Exactly the plan, says Segall. Get people to take Macs seriously again, grab attention. But Jobs also knew when to shift the enemy. Later that same year, he told employees, stop thinking for us to win, Microsoft has to lose.
Because the desktop war was over and Apple lost.
Yeah. He declared Apple's enemy then was itself. They had to focus internally on making great products just to survive. Strategic reframing.
And when Michael Dell made that comment about shutting Apple down.
Jobs put Dell's picture up with a bullseye. We're coming after you, buddy.
Yeah.
Pure motivational fuel for the troops inside Apple.
The irony, of course, is years later, Apple switches to Intel chips.
Huge irony. Jobs and Intel CEO Paul Otellini on stage together joking about the old Burning Bunny ad. But that switch was a simplifier for Apple. It gave them chip parity, let them focus on design, software, simplicity, their real strengths.
And they brought back the PC's the enemy with the Mac versus PC ads. Brilliant personification.
So effective. Justin Long is the cool, easygoing Mac. John Hodgman is the slightly bumbling, flawed PC. It wasn't about specs. It was about personality, highlighting differences humorously. It became a cultural phenomenon.
They even used HAL 9000 for the Y2K bug ad.
Iconic. Macs didn't have the Y2K bug. Using HAL's menacing voice captured the fear and complexity lurking in the PC world. Perfect use of an icon for a complicated problem. Ran during the Super Bowl. Big statement.
So thinking strategically about an enemy, whether it's a competitor or just complexity itself, can really focus a team, can it? And sometimes being a bit belligerent cuts through. Iconifying the problem helps too.
Absolutely. And Apple wasn't afraid to use every available weapon. The Nelson Mandela story is just incredible.
But the Think Different campaign, right? Jobs wanted Mandela. Gets rejected. So he asks...
Bill Clinton.
Yep. Asks the President of the United States to call Nelson Mandela on his behalf. It didn't work out. In the end, Mandela would only consider it after leaving office, but Jobs felt he'd given it the old presidential try.
What does that tell us?
Segall says it highlights a critical principle. He hadn't held back. He had used every weapon in his arsenal. Don't leave anything on the table when fighting for your goal, and that applies personally too. Fight for your own work, represent it passionately, because nobody else will care as much as you do. And ultimately, the greatest weapon Apple had was simplicity itself.
That's the core message. Simplicity became their ultimate competitive advantage. They mastered miniaturization and simplicity with iPod and iTunes, then unleashed the iPhone on the unsuspecting smartphone market.
Compared to BlackBerry with its complex menus.
Right. BlackBerry was powerful, but nested so deeply within multiple menus. iPhone was pure simplicity. Phone, internet, iPod in one device. So intuitive it felt like second nature. The manual was basically unnecessary.
It seduced people who were scared of computers because they instantly felt like they knew how to use it.
It was a super powerful weapon. And it all comes back to that Jobs quote about peeling the onion.
Yeah. The idea that first solutions are complex, most people stop there.
But if you keep going and live with the problem and peel more layers of the onion off, you can oftentimes arrive at some very elegant and simple solutions. That constant peeling, that quest, that was Apple's magic.
So, the final challenge for you listening. What weapons are you holding back? Are you fighting passionately for your best ideas? And how many layers can you peel off your current problems to find that elegant, simple solution?
Okay, wrapping this up. We've seen today how simplicity at Apple, well, it's way more than just nice design, isn't it? It's truly a religion woven into every single thing they do.
Yeah, from the brutal honesty, the small teams, the minimal products, the human-centric marketing. It's an all-or-nothing commitment. It's a skill, really.
A skill that demands relentless focus. And like Steve Jobs said, it's hard work. Simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean.
To make it simple. But it's worth it in the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains. It looks easy from the outside, but requires real commitment, consistency, bravery even, to resist complexity's pull.
So what does this all mean for you listening? You've got this blueprint now, these principles inspired by think brutal, think small, think minimal, think motion, think iconic, think phrasal, think human, think skeptic, think war, a whole toolkit.
But Segall warns, becoming skilled in simplicity isn't that simple. So the provocative thought to leave you with is, where in your world will you start peeling that onion? Which of these principles will you pick up first to start cutting through complexity and maybe, just maybe, begin to move your own mountains?
That's your challenge from this deep dive.